This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Hi, this is Devin Grayson, and you are listening to the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Nightwing News. I'm Phil, you know Kristen, and the cat Nightwing. But as we promised, we have a special guest. We've been talking her works for the last couple weeks.
Who's here?
That's you, silly.
Oh, right. Oh, it's me.
That's right. Miss Devin Grayson, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Hi, everybody.
As if I've been talking to you for the last 10 minutes saying, oh, how are you?
Yeah, I know. I was talking to everybody listening to you.
Yes.
I know how you are.
Yes. So yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking about some of your Gotham Knights issues. We covered the Nightwing Huntress miniseries, but I remember when I reached out to you, you said the one you wanted to talk about was Nightwing 93.
Yeah, I'm holding up mine too. I know you can't see me, but yes, I do want to talk about it.
Okay. Oh, before we get to that, we've been talking, like I said, we were talking Gotham Knights the last couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Are you now, or have you ever been a fan of the show Friends?
Friends?
Yes.
I mean, I'm aware of it, but I wouldn't call myself a fan.
Okay, because Bruce's lawyer in your Gotham Knights run is Rachel Green. Wasn't that Jennifer Aniston's character, or is that just a big coincidence?
Oh, I mean, wow, it's not on purpose, but it could have seeped into my brain without my realizing. Rachel Green, I am very careful about character names usually, though I bet I had a reason for that, like green like money or something. I don't remember, but I'll try to think about it while we're talking. And
because even back then I was like, oh, she must be a big fan of Friends or something.
No. And that is my character, right? She wasn't there. She's not a Chuck Dixon character.
As far as I know, yeah, that was your character.
Oh no, we're talking about Gotham Knights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. Sorry. But I doubt, unfortunately, it was that. That would have been fun, though. Give her a little, because she didn't have a job quite that interesting in Friends, right? That would have been fun.
Yeah, no, I think she worked in fashion or something. Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I just always thought that. So, no, that's why I like talking to you, because I was like, okay, that is not true. All right.
I love names, though, and I often look up what things mean, and the secret meaning of, if you break down the etymology of a name or something. I like playing with that stuff, but I have no idea what that one was about.
All right. So, all right. All right. My question when I was talking about this Nightwing 93 is, all right, we know big shocker in this issue, but it's like, why specifically did you want to talk this issue?
Because the big shocker that I intended to have be the focus of that issue is not what ended up being the big shocker that most people respond to. And that was a tremendous learning experience for me, that, at the time I did not talk about well at all, but it's been nearly 20 years and I've grown a lot. And I now welcome the opportunity to kind of revisit that and talk about what it means to confront your own internalized misogyny and learn and grow from that. I grew up in Berkeley, and my parents are hippies. Like I cannot explain how little I knew about what I was doing. And it's so strange to look back on, my unconsciousness around things like rape. And, so it was also just in pure storytelling terms a mistake that had a very strong consequence purely in the narrative because it distracted from the story I was trying to tell. So there's two levels. There's a social level and a narrative level, and I think both are worth talking about because people still discover it for the first time and they come at me online sometimes. And I'm like, I do sort of feel like there should be a moratorium at some point where you're like, okay, let me just check. Oh yeah, this has been more than 10 years. Let's see if this creator has said anything about it, since then. But, it's fine. I understand their anger and I welcome the chance to address it. And I hope to make something good out of what was a pretty miserable experience at the time.
I mean, is that just like the American comic book business, though? It's like, a couple people got killed in this issue. So what? But, what did you do to our favorite character?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. What I was trying to illustrate, what do you want to say what happens in this? I mean, I guess nobody listening doesn't know. But so the story is about, Dick Grayson, Nightwing, a hero, letting a supervillain get murdered in front of him. He doesn't pull the trigger, but we have to assume, being who he is, that he's more than competent enough to have stopped it if he'd really decided to, and he clearly does not make that decision. And Tarantula, who he's working with at the time, just shoots the guy. And then in the aftermath of that, oh, there you go. Thank you. See, you can read it for yourself.
although I think, sorry to interrupt, I think the way you wrote it, I mean, I don't know how back and read your own stuff. Because I think, yes, you have it at the end. He's like, never gonna stop, never. And then he's like, stop it, stop.
Yeah.
But it's
right. It's like internally. It's the difference between, exactly, where you are inside and what you get outside.
Yeah, it's like right. And I feel like you were trying to say that he stepped away and then he changed his mind. But in that like partial second that he stepped away, that was enough.
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. And what I was trying to examine was what it would mean for a character like that to be in that situation. And I think he'd have to be so broken down already, right, to even have that pause. Because usually an idea goes through Dick Grayson's head and it's already moving through his body. There's not usually a break like that. And this time, a very important time, there was. And so one of the things I was looking for was, ways to illustrate, to use the visual part of the medium, to sort of show how out of control he felt. And so the next thing that happens is they go up to the roof and he throws up and, Tarantula climbs on top of him while he's saying no, which that's a rape, by any definition. And, I did intend to follow up on the emotional aftermath of that. And then now so I said there was a narrative component and a sociological component. There's also, of course, the industrial political component of where I was in the book at the time with the editors and everything. So I didn't get to go back and finish that story the way I wanted to. But my intention in that scene was to illustrate how out of body and out of self he felt. That he was in a passive role for maybe the first time in his life, and just things were happening to him and he was so distraught and so upset with himself that he wasn't stopping it. But rape is not metaphorical. What was being shown was a literal rape. And so people had a very strong reaction to that. And it was really interesting. And, I think Patrick Zerker's art on the issue is absolutely gorgeous and very evocative. And I think it hits people hard, which is good. We want that impact. But that became such a shocking moment that people kind of missed the whole thing about Blockbuster getting killed, which was what I was trying to talk about. That was the moment I was going for. So that's a great, example really of losing narrative focus or putting something in your own way that distracts your readers from what you're trying to discuss. I was trying to clarify it and make it more visual, and I ended up detracting from it.
Well, was that why the rape really wasn't brought up again? Did the editor say, "Oh no, this was a hot button thing, don't bring that back up, like around issue 100 or anything, or after that"?
No, they didn't specifically say that. It's just that also while that was happening, there was this huge power shift happening at DC. The people in charge were changing, and then editorial changed through that, and then what they wanted to do with the books in general changed it. So it's not that anybody said don't go back to that. It's that they said, okay, next month you've got to do this and this and this, and he's got to be taken out of costume, and he's got to be, like there were just all these other weird marching orders that completely contradicted the 12-month outline that we'd already had worked out, and that threw me off my game, basically. And then the controversy about the rape is compounded by an interview I did around that time where somebody called me on it, and I can't, who I am now, I can't imagine what I was thinking at the time. But at the time, I sort of tittered something ridiculous like, well, it wasn't consensual, but it wasn't rape, which is like literally the stupidest, most offensive thing you can say. And I'm a survivor of sexual violence myself. Like, it's not that I don't have a connection to this material. And in fact, that's probably why I was being so callous. But, people encounter that scene, they encounter that interview, and they're like, what the hell is wrong with her? And so I do like to take opportunities to say, it's been nearly 20 years and I've learned and I've grown, and I take responsibility for that, and I apologize, and all that good stuff. And we should talk about it. We should talk about how casually rape is used in comics, and, all of that should be explored.
Well,
did people, since it is July 04, was there, do you feel like the backlash happened right away, or that it got worse as time, because I must admit, I was not actually reading the comics
right
in 04, so yeah, I didn't come across it until I don't at least 5 or so years later, and by then, Twitter had been invented.
Right.
I feel like that made it worse.
Oh, absolutely. And so, for my experience of it has been that it's gone in waves. And I'll feel like it's been addressed and we're okay. And then the material will be re-released and someone will rediscover it, or a new generation will get a hold of it, and that's what I was sort of joking about the moratorium, that when you come across something like that, just do check the date, just check and see if that person has maybe said anything else about it in the ensuing 20 years. People do change and grow. But, it's sort of, there was no immediate reaction to it. And I think actually at the time, as I recall, people liked the story. I think it was that interview that set things off, which is fair enough. And so then, yes, people were very angry for a while. Then it seemed like it was resolved. And then, social media sort of brought it up again, and cancel culture and whatnot. And so there's sort of been these, and I guess it was just re-released recently as a trade paperback or something. People were just coming at me again that I'm pretty sure discovered it for the first time. So I assume that's just going to be part of my life.
Was it released as a paperback?
Or something. I don't know why people would be finding it, but I know Gotham Knights just was, right? There's a collected edition that just came out.
I think so.
At least 1 through 12, if not a little bit more. And go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say I'd be surprised. I've had the feeling they were doing the same thing with the Nightwing material. Finally.
Well, I guess I feel slightly surprised, but also not surprised based on what I've heard about the comic industry. DC, shocker. Did you a little bit of a disservice? Because I feel like being released in trade paperback, they should have reached out to you and asked if you wanted to write an introduction to
that
it.
Would have
because
been
so
great.
Often there isn't in trade paperbacks, and then you could have said, yeah, I admit I did that. It was 2004.
Right.
Not like it's an excuse, but all of, well, maybe not all of us, but most of us have made great strides in 2004 in our understanding of rape and sexual assault in general.
Culture, I know certainly the needle has moved on that. Even
within just the past couple of years, as people have started talking about sexual assault, I've realized things that that were done to me when I was a younger woman. That I didn't there once a random guy kissed me at a bus stop. That's weird and creepy. But I just felt that, I shouldn't have been smiling it, and then now I realize later, I was right to feel that was weird and creepy.
Because I was creepy.
That dude Don't do that to people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as we examine it together as a culture, we go back and re-examine those moments that at the time we try so hard to normalize. And I think especially as females, we're socialized to minimize as much as possible. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. Don't draw attention to this. With that, I also think, though I am here taking responsibility, owning to the mistake, I do think the backlash was harsher on me because I'm female. I've really had a hard time with there's people who are sincerely mad, and then there's Comicsgate who sort of just pile on, right? So the whole thing ends up 20 times more. Like, I can't just have a conversation with people about it. It has to become a big thing. I didn't even think of the introduction. That's such a genius idea. That would have really solved a lot. But at the time, I could have used some shelter there. I read a piece recently by Sina Grace talking about, Iceman, and how he was sort of just thrown to the wolves and the boards and left to fend for himself. And that experience really resonated with me. They don't protect their freelancers at all. And just to, first of all, there is an editor there, and I do take responsibility for the story, but the editor could have said something too. That would have been nice, hey, maybe this isn't a great idea. Once that doesn't happen, then there's an entire corporate culture behind you that can at least give you opportunities to speak publicly about it or something, and none of that ever happens. And yeah, they're not good at that, and they have not caught up yet.
I mean, I think some of it too, it's just like a modern, even back in the 90s and around early 2000s, women were a lot more, I would say, overly sexualized in comics, and I don't know if people were so used to have a male sexualized or rape. Right. Even in real life, I think there's still a big stigmata about males getting raped.
Absolutely. And I would have hoped that would be interesting, and I don't know, that would change the tenor of the conversation a little bit, but it didn't at all. And I kind of understand that because people like me and like Kristen just care about Nightwing so much that we sort of bypass all that and go right to, how dare you? We love this person, this character, protect him.
Was the point of the story?
I think, though, you're definitely...
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say...
I think, though, you're definitely...
No, good.
Just real quickly onto something, though, with the... because you were the comic, that you faced lots of stuff in the industry, but I do think for the fans, because when I first got exposed to getting back into comics when I was doing stuff on the internet, definitely I saw other women that were like, I can't believe this, as a woman, so it's kind of they expected... And it's not fair, obviously. They expected more from you. They were like, right. She's a woman. Why would she? But as though women aren't obviously part of the story was, women aren't the only ones who experience sexual assault, because people have started to pay more attention to what happened. Phil will probably know better. Early 90s, when Mirage came to her parallel Earth, and she pretended to be Starfire and had sex with her, and then and he thought it was Starfire until she said and someone in the comics, not Cheetah, because that's Wonder Woman, or some people that were making fun of him, and they were telling jokes about it and stuff, and people have started, I think, more recently to be like, that was also not cool, because that is deep, but again, not the same explosion, and that might have been Marv Wolfman, and he's a dude, so.
Right, yeah. No, my God, we could spend hours talking about all the places comics have gone off the rails, and how much we owe each other, and how much better we could have done and should have done, and hopefully at least will do, right? That's where the hope is. We can't do much about what's happened in the past, but we can learn and hopefully do better, though not until the people in power change. I think I've talked about this before, but I don't, obviously trickle down economy is a total myth, excuse my language, but trickle down corporate ethics is very real. And if the guy at the top is comfortable with a certain way of presenting things, that you're going to see that all throughout that company. And so there have been a couple changes and shakeups recently that I'm cautiously optimistic about. Let's see if things get better as we get some new blood in there. But yeah, Dick especially has had it really hard.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've even said on here before, I would like to see him, like, an issue of, like, him in therapy, even, like, have you write it, you know, because
I love that.
Because if you think about it, I mean, yeah, if you count the Mirage thing, he's been raped about twice, he's been shot in the head at least twice. I'm like, he needs to be on a couch.
Yeah, him and Roy. But Roy had a hard time too. Like, yeah, give those guys some support. This is sort of off topic, but somebody recently who was coming at me about all that stuff was also really upset about how sexualized Dick often is. Yeah. And I wasn't sure where I stood on that. So I kind of wanted to get, Kristen's thoughts and stuff. Like, he was like, and stop with the butt jokes and whatever. And I'm like, really? We can't just have one? I mean, can't there be one guy that we're allowed to, like, there's so much objectification of women, and I don't think we actually are objectifying him. We love him dearly. I think any of the women making jokes about his butt could also tell you everything about his personality and history. So I don't know that that's quite, I don't know. I just, that comment upset me. I was curious what you guys thought of it.
I mean, as a guy, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's just like, it's not like, some of the female characters, it just seems like they're like, oh, she's just around because she looks good in a costume. Yeah, I mean, they don't do that.
Right.
Dick Grayson. Yeah, no.
I feel, it doesn't really bother me. And sometimes I feel like I kind of, and again, like everyone else, I've, imbibed lots of messed up gender things over mine. I like it. I'm like, yeah, I like that. Like seeing a guy, I like it, but I don't know. You identify it, but a part of me wonders if I don't like read everything in comics, but I feel as though they do different authors, and I feel, and you could probably tell us, I think DC potentially see writers to do that with Dick in a way that they don't with a lot of the other Robins. And let us know if that's true. And I'm wondering if that's because they know, gathered through the internet and just meeting people, that Dick has a larger
female
man fan base than many of the other bad characters. I mean, I would assume someone would probably have the largest female fan base, but I don't know. Maybe Nightwing has such a big fan base. It doesn't super. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I feel like that joke maybe didn't land, but some are really funny. Reason, I don't know if you. This is just the first one that pops in my head, where Midnighter is like, because I'd recognize that ass anywhere. That was funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
That was funny. That was funny.
Yeah.
And so. Yeah, so I'm just wondering if people stuff, if they're like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little though, and I missed the verb in your very first sentence. Were you asking, did the editors encourage that? Was that the verb?
Yes, I think, and did they push it more for Dick than maybe others of the Bat family?
Yeah, yes, 100%, for sure. And I know.
Okay.
We were driving some of that, I came in and said, when you're picking an artist, make sure you can draw him with his shirt off, because that's going to happen, in every issue if I can manage it. But they got it, and one of the editors I work with said, he's the character that at that time, is our age, and he's, young, hot-blooded American male, and he gets around and he's having fun, and we want to celebrate that. And I thought that was a nice way of looking at it.
And it's probably safer to like sexualize Dick Grayson because he is the oldest Robin. The further down you go, the younger they get, so it gets like weirder the further down you go.
Well, yeah, right, yeah. Doing that with Tim would not feel good. Like, whoa.
Although you read Red Hood's book, I mean, since he's very obviously an adult, is he sexier?
I mean, they've kind of had Jason with, like, he kind of has like an on again, off again girlfriend, and then he's kind of, I don't know, has a thing, not a thing with Artemis. I mean, yeah, I mean they're kind of trying to do a little bit of that with Jason now, but yeah, Dick is still the leader.
But he's behind Dick because he was dead for so long.
Yeah,
at least 20 years, like years, right? Exactly.
Oh, but the one thing I wanted to ask you about the whole storyline, I guess, that leads up to Nightwing 93. It's like I get like in a good way, I get like Frank Miller Daredevil vibes from this. That was the whole point. Of like we're gonna break the character down to learn something about him and then like build him back up.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean that has precedence in literature way before Frank Miller, as great as he is. But yeah, right. We were taking him all the way down so that he could build himself back up. And in my work, a lot of what I was looking at had to do with Dick's relationship with Bruce, and where he saw himself in that, let's say, hierarchy. And so, The coming away from Bruce is necessary, but sometimes painful, and that was part of what he was working through too. Sort of, but yes, it was supposed to end with him triumphantly coming all the way back up. He was going to put Tarantula in jail. I can't remember if that even happened or not. I think it might have.
Yeah.
And he was going to save Bloodhaven, and the whole, moving up to the deal that he was making with Slade, what was supposed to happen was it was supposed to work. That Slade who has always had sort of a weird respect for him. They were going to work out this deal where Dick's like, I'm going to keep the superheroes out. You're going to keep the supervillains out. We're just going to let the people live their lives here and see what happens. And it was going to work, at least for a while. Well, and be triumphant. It was supposed to be triumphant, and it ended up being disastrous.
Well, did they derail that too? Because I think didn't that lead up to Infinite Crisis, and weren't they talking about killing off Dick Grayson in that?
There was no talk of killing him while I was there. At least they were smart enough not to say that in front of me. I never heard that. They would have had an earful. But they did. Why did they blow up Bloodhaven? It was part of an event. There was something else going on that dovetailed into it in some super weird way. And I guess that is what that started, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think was that lead up to Infinite Crisis? It was around the time Jason came back, right?
I mean, again, that happened right after I left, and I didn't read after I left because it was so bad. I just wasn't up for the ride for a little bit, so I missed some stuff. But yeah, I think that's right. I think that's where they were going, and that was clearly very editorially driven, and they clearly had a whole. Apparently they had a whole bunch of stuff they wanted to do. And somebody asked me recently, like, getting him and Babs engaged if I sort of knew that wasn't going to last. And like, I did, but I didn't, it was sincere, but I kind of had the feeling I knew that was my last issue. And I'm like, they're going to erase all of this the second I'm gone. Like, it's just going to disappear into the void. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah. Cause that's what
kind of like when that woman get engaged, you're like,
yeah,
that's cool, but they're not like. I was not surprised the wedding didn't happen. Yeah. I would have been more surprised if the wedding had happened.
Well, if I'd been able to continue on, I actually probably would have gone through with it, but then I would have let us see them have difficulties in that relationship. I don't think that's a perfect relationship, and it would have been really interesting to explore. But yeah, so that does tie very directly, just specifically Dan DiDio. I guess it's okay to name names now. He was so against relationships, and it's such a weird thing to say that you can't put in a superhero book, because I think so much of the history of comics is actually rooted in these great relationships. There's marriages, there's families, there's and to just sort of say across the board, all of that's lame. Kids don't want to read it. It's like, wait, what? We've been growing up with these characters. We want to see them mature, and it was a very strange edict that nobody could be in a serious relationship.
Yeah,
Do you feel, because they talk about when you just said maturing, I've always wondered, do you think they want to keep so many people out of relationships? Do you think that ages you? And if you're not in a relationship, they can be more timely wobbly about how old you are?
Maybe a little bit. I think that was probably the excuse, but honestly, I think it's because he was going through a divorce and he just didn't, like, I think it's usually more personal and sloppy than that, right? I think people make decisions based on where they are in their life, and it just, no, relationships don't work. None of them in my comics. Okay, sir.
Yeah,
but you're right, Kristen, that it does also have the effect of how old is this? Settle down. We don't. He's whatever years old. He's only aged in relationship to this other character who's nebulously aged.
Well, that's the other thing when you write the Nightwing book. Are you kind of like do you always have that ball and chain around your leg because like it's influenced by the Batman books? Like you can't do certain things just because. The Batman books take precedence and...
Only during events was my experience most of the time. But again, there was that shift in leadership and editorial that I was talking about. So the first half, no, there really was no problem. And you were sort of allowed to be in your corner doing your stuff. If you wanted a crossover, if you wanted to use that, if you wanted Batman in the story, you needed to make sure he wasn't in Arabia doing something or whatever. But it was pretty generous, and there was a lot of trust. And part of the big cultural shift that happened at that time is we went from these huge pre-approved 12-month outlines to literally having every single line of every single script read by the guy in charge. Like the micromanagement that came in all of a sudden was insane. Kind of superhuman. I don't quite know how he pulled that off.
Was that when Scott Peterson stopped being your editor?
Oh no, it was was even way before that. Yeah, Scott Peterson is definitely part of the good part of the story, but he'd already left and been replaced like twice over by that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He was your editor when you started Gotham Knights?
Was he my editor on Gotham Knights? I thought Denny edited Gotham Knights.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I just remember seeing his name somewhere in your letter columns or something.
Yeah, no, he was definitely involved. So the back group, it was Denny O'Neil, Scott Peterson, Darren Vincenzo, and Jordan Gorfinkel, and they were absolutely great. And then, they just kind of left one by one of their own accord, with the exception of Denny, who got pushed out in kind of an ugly way at the end. But then. By the time everything was falling apart, my editor was Michael Wright, who I actually quite liked. But he was so clearly disempowered. Like every time we got into a issue with upper management, it was clear that he really didn't have anything to go back to them with. That we were just taking marching orders. That was the only solution available to us. So that was hard. Whereas before, I think there might have been more pushback, but I don't blame him for that at all. That was one of the symptoms of the big corporate cultural change that was going on. But Scott was the one who made about the red-blooded happy sexuality. Like that was part of the group that had the good perspective on letting people have relationships and grow and be the participate in sexual object jokes one day and then be fully dimensional characters with romantic lives the next, as we do in real life, right? We joke and then we're serious.
So before any fan backlash, so no one, upper management, no one had a problem with the ending of 93?
No, not that anyone told me. Nope. Oh. Yeah. Didn't hear a thing from them.
I feel like it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, this might sound terrible, but it's 2004, all dudes.
Yeah, so. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I'm shocked at how unwoke I was, but I'm not shocked at how unwoke they were.
For sure.
I swear we had something.
For sure. And I feel like that some of these fan sites and that UVic's darker corner of the internet for sure. And I know when I was first I did comics as a kid, and back in, some of your stuff on Nightwing I didn't like, and I apologize about it on the internet. Oh. Although I tried to restrain myself from saying them to your face, because I try not to be that big of a dick.
It's fine not to like stuff. It's fine to say that you don't like stuff. It's just not fine to come at someone calling them names and threatening their family. That's a line.
Yes.
It should be a pretty clear line to most human beings. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But honestly, as I've grown and matured as well as a person,
well, right.
and talked to you before, I really think that some of this like made information really does help me understand the stuff that you wrote, but all that everybody else wrote as well. Because I get the sense from what you said before and in the book for us later, that you talked about you had much freer reign with Batman Gotham Knights.
Very much so.
And that's like my favorite series ever. Like much. And I think it's so good. And then you can kind of see a difference, particularly in some of the later Nightwing stuff that later talked that like I didn't like it as much. Totally. But you've talked about how
I didn't either.
like you were now it sounds like you were barely writing it because somebody was going over line that you did, and that makes a huge difference. I imagine are much more satisfied with the work you did on Batman Gotham Knights than you are with something that was near the end of your Nightwing run when you were being totally micromanaged.
Yeah. It's disappointing because it would have been nice to have been able to showcase growth. I think I was learning more about the medium, and Gotham Knights was super early in my career. And looking back on it, I really have warm feelings about the stories in there too, but I think technically there were still some things I was working on. It's too wordy, there are things I hadn't quite learned about how to work in comics as well as I could. And so I feel like I had that stuff down much better by the time I was on Nightwing. But then, then I lost complete control of the narrative, which has always been the most important part to me. So it was, my working relationship with DC started out so well and was so lovely for a really long time, and then ended so unhappily. It's really too bad. I like that you can see that though, and it's fine that having new information helps with that. But I actually think that's an interesting thing for readers to watch for. They're given the impression that we're all auteurs, and that we have complete control over what we're doing. That's very rare. These characters make billions of dollars for their parent corporations, and we're, very carefully watched at all times with what I used to joke, but at the end of the day, Batman's job is really to go sell toothpaste, and they're very aware of that. I remember when Greg Rucka and I were working on the end of No Man's Land, we had to kill somebody, and we had really carefully thought through some really good ideas, and they basically came back, and I was visiting him and his wife in Portland, and he was on the phone arguing, so we were only hearing one side of the conversation, but all of a sudden I heard him say, "So basically anyone who's ever been a toy is out?" I was like, oh, of course. But that, of course they are. But that does explain it. And so really, which is another way of saying anyone who would have real impact, or it's then you have to work that much harder to make sure that it actually matters.
Well, that's what
it's a very strange business, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I've said for years. I'm like, it's weird. Like you can go to the store, there's Joker children's toys, and I'm just like, I know he's fictional, but he's a mass murderer.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a serial killer.
Mommy, I want to grow up to be just like him.
Exactly. And you have all these teenage girls now who are like, oh, I want a relationship like Joker and Harley. It's like, really?
Yeah. Oh God, no, you don't.
No.
No, you do not.
No.
You do
not healthy. Not healthy.
No.
Yeah. I just find that kind of stuff, I don't know, so interesting to kind of see, because that's one thing that I find kind of cool. I don't know. My real job is so I also find it so fascinating to think about what's going on in the world and that kind of stuff, because that affects something like comics much just than if you're writing a novel.
Right.
If it's the novel, you invent everything and you do it. And the other thing, of course, I think that is, I assume, maybe freeing, probably both, is you can't have it. You can have the baby ending, really have an ending the way you can in a novel, because it has to keep going for 80 or 100 more years.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right.
Right, because we got to sell more toothpaste.
It's freeing, but it's also tricky, right? Because you have to sort of do the illusion of change. You have to find ways that you can have the character grow and mature without, as they said, taking the toys out of the toy box. You know, you always have to put everything back the way you found it in the end. But I think actually part of why I stayed with comics as long as I have is because that serialized writing is really interesting. And when they let you go, it just allows for these incredibly detailed, rich, rewarding stories. When they pull you in and curtail you, you can have disasters. But there's so many great stories have come out of just letting the story run like that. Like that's why so many of the relationships in the Bat family are so rich, because they, you know, we're looking at whatever, say 10 years in their lives, but we have 80 years worth of that. You know, it's really cool.
And I know they were.
Yeah, and I like how.
Oh, I was going to say, I know they were, you were saying they were micromanaging you toward the end of your Nightwing run, but did they give you more free reign with Nightwing? So I'm like, I could guarantee you they wouldn't let you, like, you know, Batman's not going to get raped by anybody.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about the recent Black Label Bat Dick incident. I really don't think those guys got fired over that, did they? And I don't think. No, they put out like edited versions, but I mean, yeah. So I don't know. It was, you know, different time.
Didn't Batman get?
I saw.
Isn't there a verse raped by Talia? And that's how Damien's conceived.
They kind of redid that because I think, you know, that was almost like an Elseworlds thing. But then once they brought Damien in the continuity, they're kind of like, you know, she kind of roofied him, you know, kind of made him suggestible or whatever. Yeah, I know. That was Grant. Thank you, Grant Morrison.
Oh, comics.
I know. It's like, okay, we have to explain that.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I like the serial thing as well. When it kind of go back and tell a story, because we've been doing this all year, and I picked a lot of early Robin stories because I like. Also, I was like, oh, but Phil, we got to read this. That's a Dick as Robin, but it was written not that long ago, and that's fun.
Yeah,
how it allows you to do. It's like a prequel.
Yeah.
So I think you said, I mean, in mainstream, like, you know, like DC or Marvel Comics, like Dick Grayson's your favorite, correct? Or he was.
Yes, I'm such a Dick Grayson fan that I always want to correct that and go, well, Batman. But I think I'm saying that because Dick's in my head. So yes, we'll just go with Dick Grayson being my favorite. Yeah, he's certainly the one I had the strongest connection to.
I mean, he's basically Batman, but like I always say, he's just not a jerk about it. You know, he's a much more healthy human being.
Batman, yes, but that makes a huge difference. You know, who you are when you take that off. Their emotional health levels are really different, and it's in part because Dick had Bruce. You know, that makes it, you know, being taken care of by somebody who has compassion for your situation, even if they are a little stunted in their expression of it, is tremendously powerful.
And I also always wonder too, it's like maybe could it be because as a kid Dick Grayson traveled with this circus and he got to see more of life. You know, Bruce Wayne was locked up in that mansion.
Yeah, yes. I mean, and I wrote a book, Inheritance. It's a weird little DCU novel thing, but I explore that. I think it really is actually very important that they have such different backgrounds, and that Dick was part of this very hardworking itinerant family where he was expected to pull his weight. They traveled. He saw the world. He was engaged in being part of a family in a very different way than Bruce ever was, some of which is also a class distinction, and that's interesting to look at. You know, being a circus family is really different than owning a mansion in Upper Gotham. I think personality-wise, even if none of their experiences lined up and they never met, they're very different people. But you know, the synergy between them and how much they've meant to each other that was the drug that got me into comics. You know, it's that relationship is why I'm here.
Back to the Rachel Green thing. I did read that book I did read your book years ago, so maybe that's what put that in my head.
Yeah. I think that's, you know,
I love that book.
I expanded on that, and I went ahead and said that they were like Calderasha gypsies, and I wanted to sort of talk about the ROM and give a little more depth to that because I was interested in the class distinction. And that's something I wish I could have written about a little bit more. I used to do role play in Gotham too, and that was a joke that we run all the time, that we'd sort of have Bruce ribbing, take about, that hot gypsy blood, and it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not, there's a lot of fun dynamics to play with them. That's all I'm saying.
So anything else?
Well, since they have that history where back before, I don't know, the 80s or so, Bruce Willier, and it was like a kindler, gentler, kind of got that to play off of.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they go camping together and stuff. It's adorable. It's, as from a writing point of view, it's super tricky. You look at a character like Dick Grayson. Did he grow up in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s? Like, those are all really different, right? I mean, we look at generationally, but the answer has to somehow be all of the above. You have to make it work. And those are really strange things to play with too. That the way time moves through comics. And I sort of ignore the resets. Like, I understand why they have to do that. And it's important to me that Batman is Bruce Wayne, and I don't want my kid to pick up a comic and not have that experience. So in that sense, I understand the resets. But on the other hand, as much fun as you can have with continuity, I also sort of feel like all of these stories are legends, and you have to let them just be legends. Like, we don't quite know when it happened in time. This is what somebody said happened. So let's assume all of those stories were stories that somebody told, and some of them probably have more veracity than others. But what you end up with is this amazing collection of contemporary mythology that has characters with beating hearts at its core.
Just keep it vague. I mean, look at, Batman the Animated Series. You don't know when that takes place.
Right. Yes. And it's great. It's so great.
Oh, yeah. Ages well.
I also don't understand why. I mean, they produce so many comics, so I don't know. Maybe they figured out what the saturation level was, but I doubt it. But, like, that was one thing that when they did the new 52, that I thought, I don't actually understand how this whole, because there's this great thing called the internet, called Wikipedia, or DCpedia, where you can just go and read it, and boom, you are caught up on decades of, I didn't understand why you needed to reset, and if they were worried about you couldn't have more than one timeline, because, they collapsed, they used to have Earth, and they were like, that's confusing, and they got rid of it, but then they realized, no, it's actually more fun when you have these, why they couldn't have carried on with, okay, we're gonna do some, it's Dick and Damian as Batman and Robin, but Bruce is doing.
Yeah, when I came into the Bat Office, that's what was going on. There was 5 different books, and they were all pointed in different directions. There was Detective, that's where the detective stories were. There was Legend, those were timeless. They happened anywhere. There was, Gotham Knights, that's where I was doing my family stuff. There was Batman, which was more sort of, superhero stuff. He was in the JLA. There's and when you do that, you're allowing the creators to do what they do best. If you have the right people in the right positions on those titles, then you have this amazing collection of Batman stories to offer the public, and they can go find whatever works for them. The other thing that, like, when you go read your comics, you don't go sit down and read April of 1999, right? You go pick up your Batman issues or your detective issues, or, you read a story straight through like that. And the emphasis that they sometimes had on making sure the issues interrelated, that's not going to matter in 2 years, much less 20. Yeah. So yes, I completely agree. I'm not quite, I suspect some of it is around corporate control again. That's like, I'm resetting because I want the rules to go my way, right? But it's frustrating, and we can do better. And also the core tenets of the character, what you really have to know, those can be reintroduced in every single story if you have good writers. Like, you shouldn't feel confused when you come into a Batman story. The relationships might be long-lived and detailed, but you should be able to pick up wherever you are and move into them, and the core tenets of the character should be right there on the page.
Well, yeah, it just seems like, I think they're settling. I think they're settling down with it, but I think just for a while they were like, oh, we got a new creative team, we need a new number one issue, and it's just like every 2 years.
Well, yeah, that's sales though. That's just sales. Yet another department.
But because I was reading also the Glenn Weldon Batman book about Caped Crusade and the rise of nerd culture. And it was pretty good. But one thing that I wish he'd done a little bit with the history of Batman, but was talking about these specific nerd subsets. Most people really enjoy Batman as grim, dark loner,
right.
Who doesn't have the family and stuff. But that's not the only interpretation. It's also not the only interpretation. And I felt like sounds like when you came in, yes, I enjoyed the family aspect, so I got much more enjoyment out of Batman Gotham than out of just, Legends of the Dark Knight that tended to be Batman solo stories.
Right.
But if you have that wide array, then you're welcoming to more characters.
Right, and how can that not be good? And more readers.
Right, it seems like they're more focused on the collectors market where people get all, as opposed to, you could have had one where...
think of them as thinking forward and thinking about the people picking up the books, but I suspect really they're just thinking about their own reading habits and how they remember. Every time a new editorial team comes in, they reset to whenever they were most in love with comics, and that becomes the dominant paradigm of the energy. I did come in the grimdark period, and I kind of liked that. I'd like to think I was doing grimdark Batman with his family. But yeah, absolutely. If somebody's really into the shiny, happy 70s superhero aspect, why can't they have an adventure book like that? There's enough room for all of that. There's enough creators who want to create it. There's enough readers who want to read it. They should absolutely be doing that.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed the all ages Tiny Titans comic. Those happened because it was, not super and that kind of thing, but they also had a lot of jokes in there that if you've been reading comics for a while, was funny, and layered. So it was like a Disney movie. How the Disney movie is technically aimed at the kids, but you got to put some jokes in so that the parents don't hate themselves for 90 minutes.
Hate their lives.
Just like that. Exactly. It was like that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of layering that most creative teams are totally up for. It's fun for us too to be like, all right, I need to make this accessible to someone coming in for the first time, but I want to make sure to be rewarding, some Easter eggs for people who've been here for a long time. That's a totally fair thing to ask your creators to do.
That's why some of the Elseworld stuff is so cool, because I feel like they let people have much.
That's where the shackles come off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, much freer reign, and some of that stuff you're like, wow.
Yeah, some of it's cool.
That was cool.
All right. And any final questions, Kristen? So we can let Devin go.
I want to know, do you have a favorite issue that you wrote, Devin, that involves Dick Grayson? And then if you have a favorite issue you wrote that
or if you were going to
like a storyline or something.
If you were going to point people to one that if someone asked you about, I don't know what you're most proudest of, or like what's your definitive issue or arc on Nightwing? It could be Gotham Knights. It could be Nightwing.
Wow. That's a great question. I would leave the definitive part up to you guys. I think you would know that better than me. All I can answer from is from personal experience. I have attachment to different issues for different reasons, but I think the story that comes to mind fastest for me is the Hugo Strange arc in Gotham Knights.
Yes!
And that's in part because I feel like I hit my stride there. I was more comfortable and I had all the characters where I wanted them, so I could just start using them all together. But it's also in part because my mom's a therapist, and working with Hugo Strange, it was so much fun turning your mom into a supervillain, you guys. So that will always remain a high point for me.
And you are a model of mental health.
I like the we weren't even talking about Titans, but the one where they all go to the island and there I think gargoyles involved.
Yes,
and
we did that one too.
Yeah, that was really fun just because I got to finally use all the background reading that I'd done on them and find ways to bring that into what I was doing at the time.
And the jokes. Did you know Dick was raised by Batman?
Oh, is that? Yeah, that's right. That's where that is. Because in case you missed it.
Yeah, I think we might have asked at that point, was that one of your favorite old issues of Titans, or did you just be like, oh, let's use Gargoyle?
I liked I was looking for, as somebody Scarecrow-esque that I could, somebody that could mess with their heads, because that's what I needed for that issue. And I had been very briefly part of a fanzine, and one of the members of the fanzine pointed me to that story, the original Joker, original Gargoyle story. And yeah, it's great. And there were pieces there that I think I sort of I was like, oh, we're absolutely using that. And that's the other fun part about having these crazy 80-year histories is pretty much anything you need is there. You just need to dig a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And that is such a great example of you're picking something up that's old and
thank you. Awesome. All right, you guys, this was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time once again.
I hope you're staying safe in California, right?
Yeah, we're doing all right. You too, yeah. Good. Keep your mask on, wash your hands, be good people. That's all we need to do. It's not that hard.
Oh, hey, before you leave, is there anything you want to promote? Any work you're doing now?
I'm so excited about the project I'm doing with Karen Berger right now, but Dark Horse just completely wiped out their schedule, so I don't know when it's coming out. So let's see. We can mention the Widowmaker with Red Guardian and Elena Belova. That's going to come out to sort of go along with the movie that Black Widow. So I don't know. I think they're trying to pace it. So it was supposed to be out already, but I think maybe October is now when it's rescheduled for. We can figure that out, but that's I don't think that's come out yet, and that should be fun. And the last sort of series I did was working on Omni with humanoids. And I think the protagonist in that is really interesting and wonderful. And the woman who took over after me, yeah, there you go, is absolute Melody Cooper is fantastic. And I hope people are picking it up and reading it and supporting her work.
Nice. I was going to say, if it's October, I'll talk Widowmaker with you if you want to promote it. This one,
sure.
this one doesn't read Marvel, but I'll talk
after the movie, because I can't wait. I don't know anything. I don't know what they did with her. I don't know how much like my Yelena it is. It's such a weird business. They don't tell. People were contacting me on Twitter, going, "Aren't you excited?" I'm like, "About what?" They don't even freaking tell you they're using your character, and it is exciting. And if one person from Marvel would reach out and go, "Hey, by the way, we're using this. We know we've signed all our legal rights away. We know we're not going to make any money on it. That's okay. Just make me feel like I'm part of the team. Give me a heads up."
You don't get any royalties for somebody. No. Wait, what if you create somebody?
I did. I created Yelena Belova, who's taking over as the Black Widow in the Black Widow movies. She's being played by Florence Pugh, and she's going to replace Natasha. And yeah, I don't get anything, and I know nothing. I get royalties for the release of the original comic that introduces her, because of course they repackaged that and put it out to support the movie. And I get paid for the new one I just did with her. But yeah, no, I don't even know if they'll give JG and I credit in the movie. They might not. We know nothing.
I was going to say, probably in the credits, it'll probably be special thanks too, and you'll be on the list.
That'd be nice, but yeah, I don't even know.
I thought that when they use I wonder if that was a change, because Mike Barr came to, sorry, I'm dragging the time out. Mike Barr came to some conference that we were at, and it sounded like some of the stuff he created in the 80s, he did get some royalties if they were used in other capacities.
It might have something to do with an agent, or DC and Marvel are different. I do actually get royalties for Damien Dark appearing on the CW shows, for instance.
Nice.
Because DC is known to be better about that than Marvel is. Marvel's sort of always been a dick about creator royalties.
Yeah, he was talking about somebody for DC because it was at a Batman conference.
Yeah. So that's probably right. Yeah.
Also, I think you told me this before, but in case our readers to plug it, if someone buys a copy of a comic that you wrote on Comixology or something digital, you get
that's completely
probably
legit.
Not very much since it only sells for $1.99, but you get a little bit, and you and the artists and stuff, like everybody gets a little bit of money.
Yes, and if that's the way you're collecting comics right now, I'm totally. That's great. Do it. It's good for the environment, and it might give you access to things you can't otherwise find. And that's all legit.
And it keeps you home.
yes, it does.
Right.
Yeah, no,
and if you happen to be moving around a lot, you're a youthful person. It's all right there. You don't have to schlep these books around.
Exactly. They won't, wrinkle in your back pocket. It's all good.
Plus, if you buy a secondhand floppy copy, like the original people don't get any money for that.
Right. I'm totally fine with that. And, obviously if you pirate it, we don't get anything, but really mostly we just want people to read our stories. That's the most important thing to us. So we turn a blind eye.
So if people go buy Nightwing 93 digitally, you'll get paid for it again.
Well, I don't know if you want to get that one. I don't know.
Well, any of them.
It's probably like a nickel or something because they don't sell them for very much.
Better than zero.
Well, go see Patrick Zerker's beautiful art. It is worth it for that. He did some amazing panel layouts in that.
Do you watch any of the? It's fine if you know any of the movies that have like Dick Grayson, Nightwing, like any of that?
No, I can't. Okay. I just can't.
Okay, because you used to watch the animated series, right?
I did. Well, I watched the animated series before I was a professional.
Okay,
that's actually what got me in.
So you haven't watched you haven't watched Titans?
No, never. Or Gotham, it's weird once you've had your fingers in their hearts. It's the analogy I always use is it's like an ex. You wish them well, you hope things are going, but you don't need to be there at the dinner table.
So what's your favorite Batman the Animated Series episode?
Ooh, well, I loved The Mask of Phantasm, though. That was the movie. I know
that is like the best Batman movie. Period.
Like, to me, that's a Batman movie.
That's the best Batman movie. Period.
Yeah, I kind of think so. Well, the first one I saw was If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? And that was the moment that started it all for me, because there's that moment where Dick has his feet up on the dashboard of the Batmobile. And like that, talk about great visual cues. Like I knew right away there's something going on between those two characters. Like, who is this kid who's like got his shoes on the dashboard of the Batmobile? That's crazy. So I have fond memories of that. There's so many good ones, though. That was a really pleasurable experience. I wish we had something like that now.
Yeah, it is. That's good. So good. I like Fear of Victory. I think that's
my favorite. Yes, that's a good one. That is a good one. I remember that.
But yes, I do love. I always find that as like such a great example of writing for both the little kids, who are watching with kids, and for the adults. Is that If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? Where Dick says, right, I think it's actually right around the time when he has his feet up. He's like, you said that guy, a play on his name. Do you know who he is? He's like, yeah, his name's Edward Nigma. And he goes, oh, Enigma, I get it, like a puzzle or something.
Right. That's right.
Dang.
Very nice.
When I first watched that episode, I was like 7, and I didn't know who Enigma was.
I was going to say, that was right over your head. Yeah. Right. So that, right. Well, we were talking about parents and kids, but it also gives it rewatch value because, we go back and we know different things and pick up different things.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I was many years old when I realized one of the Scarecrow's quotes is a joke on an ESPN tagline.
I don't even think I've noticed that.
In Fear of Victory, he says it's like, the fear of victory and the agony of the Scarecrow.
Agony of victory, yeah. I guess I did know that.
Well, I didn't know that because I really don't know very much about sports.
Fair enough.
All right, let's let Gavin go. Yes. Thank you.
No
sorry if we kept you too long.
And you guys know how to reach me if you have any follow-up questions. You both have my email.
Yes.
I hope you're well. Stay safe. Take care. Oh, and just quick shout out to Brian Stelfreeze for the wacky avatar.
Nice.
He did that for me for Matador. He has pictures of us as if we were arrested in Miami.
I was just saying, Miami Dade.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, Devin.
You bet. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, she said she had an interview this morning. That's why I was like, she's been talking all day.
Dang.
Yeah.
Busy.
That's what I said. I'm like, when it rains, it pours, huh? She's like, yeah. All right. So should we get out of here?
Yep, let's wrap it up.
Say,
what's up for next week, Phil?
Well, since we move stuff around a little bit, next time is probably what we said we were going to do last episode. Wait. I guess I can pull up schedule instead of sitting here going, oh.
I was going to say, I wrote it down. Let me go look. I was just asking so you could make the announcement.
Yeah, I have it on the computer.
Oh, yes, Bloodborne.
Oh, yeah, Bloodborne and
Bloodborne is
6/15, yeah. Yeah. That like middle issue Hush. Yes, so yeah, send your thoughts. Hey, send your praises in. What did you enjoy that Devin interview? So
you should have.
Yes, so pat us on the back for getting that. So yes. So email us capesandlunatics@gmail.com. Call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And remember to follow Nightwing News on Facebook. And we even have a Facebook group. So we have a Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. Twitter. Follow Capes and Hey, you can watch this interview. You can watch the video on the Capes and Lunatics YouTube channel. Find links to everything all in one place. That's Linktree, linktr.ee/Capes and Lunatics. And remember to support sponsors, Tweaked Audio, Hunt a Killer, Pod Life the Book, now in digital and paperback. Learn all about podcasting. And while you're buying books, go pick up Dick Grayson, Boy Wonder. By another writer.
Interview with Devin in it.
By another female writer, yes. And
Devin's is the longest one. She was really good for that book. She was like, some of the other writers were like, yeah, I do it, but I need like just short. So I had to give him like 10 or fewer questions. But Devin was like, send me as many questions as you want, and I'll try to answer them all. And she did.
So pick that up. Devin Grayson is in there. And remember to support our sponsors, Tweaked Audio. Oh, no, I did that already. Come on. Amazon.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate hearing it again.
I know. But use the link down there in the show notes for Amazon. Help support this show, the Southgate Media Group Network, and the masked figure Rob Master Doom Southgate.
Make it rain, so says Master Doom.
And you can hear him on the upcoming episode of Capes and Lunatics. All right. Well, I'm sure when I do my editing, I'll throw it in the beginning too. But
Diggity
give me a diggity dank bookend, yeah. All right, everyone. Yeah, join us next time. Batman Bloodborne and Batman 6/15. Nightwing is in both. I always like talking to Devin. All right, everyone. Again, come back next time. Same wing time.
Same wing channel.
Nightwing News. Keep flying, Graysons. And thank you, Devin Grayson.
Thank you.